Senator Coons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Madam Secretary, for your outstanding service. You've demonstrated, I think, really remarkable leadership and vision in a very difficult time in world history, and I just want to applaud you and the administration for leading a strong foreign policy that's based not just on defense, but also diplomacy and development. And I was grateful for the chance to witness firsthand your leadership on a joint delegation trip to Liberia for the inauguration of President Johnson Sirleaf. I think it's critical that the United States continue to demonstrate support for democratically elected leaders in Africa as well as in other places in the world to encourage the rule of law and good governance. And I'm also grateful you continue to elevate, as you did today, economic statecraft and development among the 5 principal priorities you put forward this year. A number of the senators who preceded me have touched on issues of real concern to me. Alan Gross's case in Cuba, Iran sanctions and making sure we continue to press them, the path forward with Egypt. There's been lots of good ground covered. And I want to associate myself with Senator Rubio's comments about PEPFAR and its importance. But as the Africa Subcommittee Chair, I just wanted to move, if I could, to the twin concerns of trade and governance and how an American values agenda around governance and transparency and rule of law also helps promote economic opportunity, economic statecraft, as you put it. You recently commented at the first ever State Department Global Business Conference how America's foreign policy can champion U.S. business abroad and drive recovery here at home. Describe for me, if you would, in a little detail, the tools pursuing these critically important objectives in Africa in particular in this FY13 budget request, and what we're doing around trade and investment for the United States. And then if we could go on to a question about governance and how these two connect.
Well, Senator, thank you, and thanks for your passion and commitment to Africa, and thanks for traveling with us to Liberia. I think that's an excellent question. You posed it with respect to Africa. It obviously could be more generalized. But speaking about Africa specifically, you know, our approach combines several different tools. First, trade missions to Africa. Assistant Secretary Johnny Carson just took a large delegation of American energy firms to Africa to meet with government officials, to meet with utility companies and businesses, to talk about how the products and expertise of American energy companies could really enhance development of the energy sector in Africa. Secondly, we're doing a lot of other energy work through our newly constituted Energy Bureau because Africa is so blessed with energy resources that are either not developed or underdeveloped and underutilized, or being developed in ways that are not good for sustainable development. So, you know, we are interacting at the highest levels of government to try to work on that. Thirdly, the African Growth and Opportunities Act is a tremendous tool, and we have actively worked the last 3 years to, you know, help countries take better advantage of it. A lot of countries that are members don't really utilize it to the fullest, and also to work with countries that could benefit from it. We have the Partnership for Growth, we have the Feed the Future, we have the Global Health Initiative. You know, these are development objectives, but they are development objectives that are really focused on enhancing the capacity in African nations. The Millennium Challenge grants, which are operating in Africa, do some of the same work. We also have encouraged greater regional integration, like the development in East Africa of a kind of a common market among some of the countries. We'd like to see that all over the continent. I mean, if African nations would open up their borders to one another, if they would trade with one another, knock down barriers, if they would develop transportation networks, that would add dramatically to the ability of Africans to reap economic benefits. And the final thing I'd say is, probably no part of the world has benefited more from the advance in information technology, particularly wireless technology, especially mobile phones in Africa. So we have a lot of interesting initiatives underway to help people do mobile banking, to help them get linked into the futures markets on their mobile phone, just all kinds of really innovative ways that we have promoted both from outside but also from within by running contests for young African entrepreneurs. So, I mean, I could go on for a long time, but it's a very important part of our agenda for Africa.
Well, thank you, Madam Secretary. And let me transition then to the other part of what I think is our shared agenda for Africa, which is promoting America's core commitment to transparency, to rule of law, to democracy, to internet freedom, to human rights. Many of us were relieved that Senegal's elections proceeded without significant violence, but it raises the ongoing question whether in Uganda, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Zimbabwe, of national leaders who have either manipulated constitutions or avoided really free and fair elections on a continent where there has been steady progress towards democracy in the last decade. What can we do to encourage and sustain good governance in Africa? What priorities are reflected in this 13 budget in that regard? And then what can we be doing together that will help bring together these twin strands? One of the most striking things Senator Isaacson and I saw, for example, in Nigeria was how that mobile phone revolution you're talking about made possible transparent elections in Nigeria in just the same way that they're making possible access to the marketplace and information for small farmers in Ghana. So how are we advancing the American values agenda in Africa?
Well, you're right to point out what technology has meant, because we have invested in helping countries modernize their voting systems, making elections more transparent. We did a lot of work in Kenya, and the constitutional referendum there really demonstrated the impact that technology can have, because we were able to get technology widely distributed, get votes counted without going through a lot of hands. So we are emphasizing the use of technology to empower citizens to hold their governments more accountable, to have elections that are free, fair, and credible. We're also pushing very hard on how we interact with leaders in Africa by supporting those who are legitimately elected, like President Ouattara in Cote d'Ivoire. You know, there was a case where there was a credible election, he was elected, and you know, the former President Gbagbo wouldn't leave. Well, we weighed in very heavily. So we are trying to demonstrate that our commitment to technology, our commitment to elections, our commitment to good governance go hand in hand with what we think Africans across the continent want, which is, you know, more effective functioning societies that give them a chance at a better future.
Thank you very much. I have additional questions I'll submit for the record about Nigeria, Somalia, the Sahel, others. Thank you so much for your appearance before this committee today, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Senator Coons. Let me just take a moment to thank you for your tremendous energy and diligence and enthusiasm in your leadership of the African Affairs Subcommittee. It's been really terrific and much appreciated by the committee.